Welcome to the Canoga Park Youth Arts Center series, Road Trip to the National Parks. And we've been going to all these national parks that are driving distance from Los Angeles, where we currently live. Today's adventure takes us to Colorado to a wonderful site called Mesa Verde. Mesa Verde means green table in Spanish, and it's our country's largest, North America actually, the largest cliff dwelling. So all this is like a big overhang, and these people built these amazing dwellings inside there. Let's take a look at the photographs I have for you. Now, this is called the Four Corner States. It's the only part in our country where there's like an actual X. And you can see Mesa Verde is really close to the actual four corners of it. So it's technically in Colorado, but it's really close to being in 3 other states. It's a huge park. This picture here is closest to what we're going to be doing today. I want you to notice, do you see this? Kind of looks like an eyeball, doesn't it? So when I look at a complicated landscape like that, I'm looking for basic shapes. And when I look at that, I see this eyeball that all of our buildings are going to be in. Here's another view of Mesa Verde. You can see these, I believe, they're either cisterns, which is a means of collecting water, or they are ritualistic spiritual sites that they included. But there's a number of these circular constructions in it. Down here, they've got it all lit up, and you can see how beautiful this place is. Some of these buildings are 3 stories high. So these were advanced building skills. Let's look over at this one here. It gives you a better look at these cisterns. In fact, the reason why it was abandoned is because there kept being drought after drought after drought. So these cisterns, if that's what some of them were used for, was a way of collecting the rainwater so they could keep their crops alive. Let's look at this one. Look at how sophisticated that is. They got the windows. They've got 3 stories. These are well-built, beautiful buildings. Now, Mesa Verde was actually first started, people started living there 7,500 years ago. That's like before the pyramids. And so it has been occupied continually for a really, really long time. Mesa Verde is our country's largest archaeological site. And let's take another look at the picture here. So, like my eyeball, remember that eyeball I pointed out? There's my eyeball. Now, I know there's a zillion trees down here and a zillion rocks. I'm not going to color and draw a zillion trees. So I just kind of divided up the trees into rows. And things that are closer to us are darker. Things that are farther away are lighter. I really wanted to emphasize the fact that this was inside of a cliff. So I got really dark with that part so it felt like it was inside. And this is actually the top. So if you were just riding your car around here, you'd have no idea that this lay below you, because this is just the flat land above. And here's my horizon line, remember, where the sky meets the land. So I think we might be ready to start our own Mesa Verde. With every landscape, you're going to hear me say over and over again, we start with the horizon line. And because we have all this cool stuff going on below, my horizon line is going to be very high. So I'm going to draw a quick mountain range. Remember, mountains are all different. They're like you, no two alike. Now I'm going to draw a straight line under my mountains. This shows me that this land is flat, and when I get to this point, I start walking up a mountain. Now I'm going to draw my eyeball. This is a general location of where I'm going to put my cliff dwelling. So here's my eyeball, and I'm going to go in the front here, and we've got like layers of rocks, so I'm just going to kind of wing a couple of layers of rocks around here. And then we've got these giant rocks that come down the side like this. These rocks are closer to us. Do you see how I'm just kind of sketching? I'm just kind of sketching. Rocks are very irregular, so we're just sketching. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to put some big rocks over here. Maybe one guy comes up like that. Now I got my trees here. So we start off with 1 row of trees, and I'm going to do another row of trees. These are pine trees. So now on the top here, I have bushes up here, like little sage bushes. I'm going to put them right on the horizon line. Some are going to be big, some will be joined, some might be small. Remember, nature is all about variety. It's not like a cookie cutter. All right, so now we have those in. Now it's time for our structure inside. So here is the back part of our cave, and all of our houses we're going to kind of go, I'm going to get one of these things. This is like the ground. And then all of our houses are built here. So I'm going to start making my apartment buildings. And they're a little bit flared at the bottom. I mean, they're not like pyramids, but they're a little bit flared at the bottom. And I'm just going to make a bunch of rectangles. Some of them will be, like I said, they're rectangles, but they're a little bit wider at the bottom. Some of them are overlapping of others. Remember those round cisterns? Here's one of those round cisterns. And I'm just going to keep putting in buildings and buildings. And maybe another little bit of a wall there. Let's go to the other side. My buildings. Some of them are tall, some of them are short, some of them are overlapped, some of them stand on their own. I'm going to put another little cistern-y kind of shape here. I'm doing an oval because a circle, when you're looking at the side, is really an oval. This is a really basic sketch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my markers. And these markers and most other markers, when you hit them with water, start to dilute a little bit. So it kind of bleeds our lines in. I'm just going to really briefly go over my lines with marker. And I'm doing it very quickly. I'm not stressing. A little bit of line there. And remember, I have to do this really quickly for you guys. When you're doing it on your own, you can take a little bit more time if you like. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to outline my rocks. This is the cliff that they're underneath. And then these rocks are bigger because they're the ones that are really close to us. On the other side here. So this is flat land, and then these are my rocks that outline the cliff. Here are the large rocks that are close to us. And you see how my markers are kind of going all over the place? Here are the pine trees. Again, I'm going to be painting over this. It's okay if I don't stay right on the line I did, you know. Now I'm going to go back to my brown marker and I'm going to outline all of my buildings. Now remember, when you guys are doing this, you can take your time. I don't want to take up all of your afternoon, so I'm doing mine a little faster. There we go. One more large one there. Let's get our cisterns in. Little wall here. And this is the ground that they're all built on. Because this is the cliff down. This is flat, that drops down. Here's another one of our cisterns. Now I'm going to take a black marker. I'm going to give it some windows and some doors. Windows and doors, windows and doors. Now remember, some of them are 3 stories high. I'm just making little rectangles. This is not, I'm not trying to create a photograph. When you guys do a painting, remember, we have cameras for that. Interpret what you're looking at. Shh. Okie dokie. I think we're ready for paint. All right. When you set up your paints, have your paints on the side. I'm left-handed, so my paints are on the left side, so I'm not dragging water over my picture. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to paint my sky first. Now, the more I stir my paint, the darker my color is going to be. All right. I'm doing long strokes. And I don't have to be careful about painting around my mountains. Now I'm switching over to the purple mountains. I'm going to use a little bit of this blue to make my magenta a little more purple. Okay. Now I need brown. I need a lot of brown. And remember what I've been saying about brown? We can make brown 3 different ways. We can make brown by using green and red, orange and blue, or purple and yellow. And each one makes a slightly different color of brown. Me personally, I like using the orange and blue. So let's get a little bit of blue in there. And let's see what I got. Oh yeah, that's brown all right. So I'm going to do, this is the top of our cliff here. Get a little bit of green. Whoops. Going to get a little bit of green so I can hit those bushes, those little sage bushes I put in earlier. The rocks that are around our cliff dwelling have a little bit more yellow in them, and that way I can kind of distinguish which is the top and which is the rocks that are around our cliff dwelling. So I'm still using my brown formula, but I'm adding a little bit more yellow into it too. You can see how the brown looks a little different. And take a little bit of black and just make a little bit of, to show the different rocks. You see how fast I'm painting? All right, now I'm going to paint the cliff itself. I want a dark brown for that, so I'm going to use black. And I don't use black that often, but I'm going to use black today. Because I want the buildings to really stand out. It's all about these buildings. So if I use a black background, my buildings are going to stand out more. My buildings are a little lighter, so I've added a little bit of water to my paint. And my marker is starting to blend a little bit into my buildings because I'm not being careful enough to paint around them. Okay, the cliff is done. Time to do our rocks that are close to us. Those rocks are darker. I'm just putting down a baseline color. I'm going to go back and put some dark highlights in there. I'm getting my black. I'm going to put some highlights in there where the cracks of the rocks are. Now the only thing left are our trees. The trees that are close are darker. And to make green dark, I'm adding blue. My next row, you can see, it's got less blue in it. And if I wanted to, I can put a little bit of green up here, some plants that are maybe growing on our rocks. And the last thing I have to do is paint the face of our cliff. It's a little too much for me. All right, this is a very fast version of it. Now I could sit here and I could go and smooth out some of these lines if I wanted to. And then I could also, when this dries, go back in and redraw my windows because they got a little lost in all that water. You see I'm redrawing my windows and my doors? And that'll make them pop a little bit. Once it dries, you can go back in with that. In fact, once it dries, you can go back in with all of your markers and pull out some of this detail, but that's still kind of wet in there. All right, Mesa Verde. Well, that was Mesa Verde. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. I've been lucky enough to see it once. I highly recommend you guys go see it. Now you can tell, when you do something quickly, it's not as detailed as when you take a little bit of time. In a perfect world, these were a little bit lighter. You can see them a little bit brighter than the one that I did for you guys in real time. But the eyeball is the same. And remember, when you're doing a landscape, look for big shapes, like when I saw this whole eyeball in there. So you can take a complicated landscape scene and find the simple, basic shapes, and then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so complicated. So here's Mesa Verde, a beautiful archaeological site that we should treasure forever. I hope you all get to see it, and thank you for once again joining us at the Canoga Park Youth Arts Center series, Road Trip to Our National Parks. I've got a few more national parks for you. I hope you're able to join us again. Thank you.